expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Hi, this is Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and our guide this month is titled The Complexities of Inherited IRAs. Mike, a lot of this complexity started at the end of 2019. What are we seeing now in terms of how inherited IRAs are treated today versus how they were treated before?
The biggest change is for people other than a spouse, and I'm going to overly generalize here, but as a rule of thumb, if you are inheriting a retirement account from someone other than your spouse, most likely you are going to need to empty that account within a 10-year time period and probably take a required minimum amount every single year, although the IRS has been willing to waive that since the rules were changed.
Now, as you mentioned, they've waived that each of the last 4 years, but there's no guarantee that they will in the future. Is it worthwhile for investors to talk with their tax professional and advisor to figure out what the best plan is to minimize taxation over that 10-year period anyways?
I mean, even if they don't waive the penalty, even if you do have to take a minimum amount, you should be planning this, right? Because if you just wait, then you might end up being surprised at the end of year 10 when all of a sudden I've got this massive account to withdraw and I have a whole bunch of taxation to realize, and it starts impacting everything from my Medicare premiums to my capital gains rates to everything under the sun.
The guide this month is titled The Complexities of Inherited IRAs, and there are two ways you can request it. The first is by calling 800-393-4001. The second is by going to ArmstrongAdvisory.com. That phone number again is 800-393-4001. Or you can request the guide at ArmstrongAdvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. There's no better place to vacation than the United States Virgin Islands. St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John have everything you need to enjoy a spectacular romantic getaway or a week-long family vacation. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. The weather is perfect all year round, so book now and experience the most beautiful beaches anywhere in the Caribbean. World cuisine, iconic history, a wide variety of water sports, and an energetic nightlife. There's no money to exchange, no passport required, and travel from New England could not be easier. Make your plans now by going to visitusvi.com. Learn about all three islands and plan the ideal vacation for you and your family. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. So head to visitusvi.com for more information and to reserve your trip today. Go to visitusvi.com. That's visitusvi.com.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor that provides investment advisory services. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else, and do not guarantee profit. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Mike Armstrong and Paul Lane. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting DAV5K.Boston and making a donation today. The DAV 5K Boston is presented by Veterans Development Corporation. This is the Financial Exchange with Mike Armstrong and Paul Lane.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Financial Exchange. It's a Tuesday here ahead of a inflation and Federal Reserve Wednesday. So big day tomorrow. Potential for wild swings in the market because you've got an 8:30 inflation report followed by a 2:30 p.m. press conference from Jerome Powell. Yesterday, in relatively calm trading, markets reached new all-time highs. Today, you've got some markets sharply down in the other direction. NASDAQ not very much so at all, but Dow off 350 points, 0.9%. The S&P off 23 points or 0.4%. NASDAQ off 0.1%. And then the Russell 2000, those small caps, off over more than 1% as the yield on the 10-year Treasury actually falls a little bit down to 4.44% this morning ahead of that Federal Reserve meeting. We had some big announcements from Apple yesterday on the artificial intelligence front, so we'll be covering that later. And then just more and more surveys of people having completely bad information about not only the economy, but their own personal finances. So we'll be talking about that a bit later. But let's start off with some Fed talk here ahead of tomorrow's press conference. So no real question here as to what is going to happen at tomorrow's meeting, and that is nothing, which isn't to say that it's not important, right? I think it's important to recognize that doing nothing is still a decision, and it's probably the appropriate decision at this point. But the Fed, I think, is walking into a much murkier situation about this economy today than where they were even just a year ago, and what to do next is a lot less clear at this stage compared to those previous times.
It's always been difficult over the last 6 to 12 months to really figure out what direction to go in. I don't envy the position that the Fed is in, but from a timing perspective, Mike, it seems like the best cause here is just to, like you said, kind of stand pat. They are going to benefit from a relatively quiet schedule from a summer meeting perspective, where they'll meet again on the 31st of July, but then there's a pretty good layoff until they get together again back in mid-September, so they'll be able to digest more economic reports as they come out. But really the focus here is you're getting sort of mixed signals from the economy at the moment. You're certainly seeing in some areas a bit of a slowdown, so there is some perhaps rising pressure for the Fed to consider rate cuts, but ultimately at this point in time, with time on their side and no clear indication that the economy is significantly dropping, you just kind of have to stand pat for the moment.
Yeah, I think so. Let's talk about what those data points are. Let's go back and forth here, because there are obviously some that are conveying a pretty hot economy still, others that are conveying some weakness. So let's talk about the weakness data points first. Revisions to GDP and the GDP Now feature are looking at total economic growth figures that are substantially below where they were last year and for the last few quarters. So you've got an overall GDP slowdown, it appears. What else do you have on your mind?
Just to drill down to those numbers there, Q4 of last year, the economic growth for this country by GDP was almost 3.5%.
That's an annualized number, so it wasn't 3.5% in a quarter, but 3.5% annualized.
Correct, and to be fair, that is significantly higher than what we typically average, which is around 2%. So that was just a bang-up number, a really strong number. However, for Q1, the initial estimates were 1.6%. Those were then revised downward on June 4th to 1.3% for Q1. Now previewing Q2, that is coming in per GDP now around 1.8%. So certainly slowing from an economic perspective. So that's one part. Okay, we're seeing a little bit slowing on the GDP front. On the labor market, you're sort of getting mixed signals here. Certainly we had the jobs report that came out last Friday where 270 some odd thousand jobs were added, but if you look underneath the hood, you did have unemployment tick up to that 4% level. You also have some indications out there on the aggregate payroll growth. That has slowed a little bit. If you look look at those numbers, there's really a huge divergence on the jobs report front, Mike, where the establishment survey component of the jobs report, which goes through payroll and wages, is seeing pretty substantial growth. But if you survey the households and the individuals, that is pointing to a more anemic labor market. So that's kind of the labor market, unless you have any other kind of takes on
the labor market. It was a very confusing report on Friday of last week. And like I mentioned yesterday, it's the type of report that can exist in a month or two, but not long term. Because what you had happen here is a divergence of, I think, 500,000 jobs between what businesses said they hired, which was around 260, versus what households said they experienced, which was a loss of a few 100,000 jobs.
Right.
So that can't, that can diverge for a period of time, but ultimately either the business survey or the household survey is telling the true story, and I don't think anybody knows which one is which at this stage. If you still believe that oil is a good barometer of, global demand for all sorts of manufacturing and other activity, well, that's not a good news story for growth either, right? You've got, I like this personally, but, oil peaked this year at about just shy of $87 a barrel back in April, and since then it's declined by about $10 a barrel. We got even considerably lower than that a few weeks ago, but we're sitting right now at around $77 a barrel. So there's a number of indicators that would say, hey, maybe we're facing a slowdown, and that slowdown in inflation will come. On the other hand, again, I think the main part is consumer spending still pretty strong. It's not dropping off. Let's put it that way. It might not be increasing at such crazy numbers as it did previously, but certainly not dropping off. You also have this other half of the labor market story. Like we said, we're not sure which one is correct, but if you take a look at payrolls, if you take a look at, again, the business side of the survey, these companies are telling you that, hey, we're paying people more and we're still hiring them. So there's a bit of a mixed story here, and I think that's pretty good justification for why the Fed should hold on. But their constant message to people is, hey, we're going to be data dependent. And unfortunately for the Fed, the data that they got on Friday was just throw it in the trash garbage. It's great to say, hey, we're going to be data dependent, but when that data is painting a very murky picture about the economy, it puts them in a tough position. So 3 meetings for the Federal Reserve before the, 3 meetings for the Federal Reserve prior to the election here. We've got one tomorrow, July 31st, like Paul mentioned, and then mid-September. The following one after that is the day after the election. So for all those calling the Fed political and they will or won't do this, that, or the other, I mean, I've hypothesized that they wouldn't want to necessarily make a move right before the election. But it's been, who criticized me on that? Mike, what's Mike's name from CNBC that came on last week? Santoli from CNBC, honestly looked at that and said, you're telling me that people are going to vote based on what the Fed moves interest rates by at most a 0.25 percentage point? I don't really think so. And so it's a fair counterpoint, and I don't really know that they will or won't make any moves. They say, their message, by the way, just, this was asked to me the other day, like, isn't there some sort of historical unwritten rule about the Fed move? No, there is no unwritten rule. They say and historically have done what they believe is right for the economy at that particular point in time. If you want to make an argument that, hey, the country's more divided and so they're less likely to do something this time, maybe that's the case, but we certainly have no evidence of it, and they would deny that themselves. So that's what's going to be going on tomorrow at the Federal Reserve meeting. Like Paul said, 99.4% chance that they do nothing at that meeting. And if we look at, meetings prior to the election, which would be the September 18th meeting, it's about a coin flip as to whether rates will be right where they are now or slightly lower. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, let's talk a little bit about the industries and companies that are dealing with these higher rates, what it might mean for them, and then some commentary from one of those heavily impacted by higher rates, but actually a little bit positive on it, which would be Morgan Stanley CEO. We'll cover those next on the Financial Exchange.
The latest news on inflation, the Fed, the economy, and how the markets are reacting every morning, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Creating a trust is oftentimes the first step in the estate planning process. It helps you prepare for the unknown as well as the inevitable. Revocable and irrevocable trusts are the most common types of trusts, but there are significant differences between the two. So before you make that crucial decision, call Cushing & Dolan at 866-848-5699. Ask for their new guide called The Difference Between Revocable and Irrevocable Trusts. Let them help you understand which may be right for you and your family and protect the wealth that you've achieved throughout your working years. Protecting your assets is paramount to being able to enjoy your retirement years, so call right now, 866-848-5699, and get your free guide today. Give yourself the peace of mind you need as you build your estate plan. Again, that number is 866-848-5699, or request the guide online from their website, LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. There's no better place to vacation than the United States Virgin Islands. St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John have everything you need to enjoy a spectacular romantic getaway or a week-long family vacation. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. The weather is perfect all year round, so book now and experience the most beautiful beaches anywhere in the Caribbean. World cuisine, iconic history, a wide variety of water sports, and an energetic nightlife. There's no money to exchange, no passport required, and travel from New England could not be easier. Make your plans now by going to visitusvi.com. Learn about all 3 islands and plan the ideal vacation for you and your family. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. So head to visitusvi.com for more information and to reserve your trip today. Go to visitusvi.com. That's visitusvi.com.
Are you looking to volunteer for an amazing nonprofit organization that helps our veterans? The DAV Department of Massachusetts Transportation Network needs volunteers right now. This network provides free transportation to and from any VA medical appointment for veterans of all eras. To become a volunteer driver, you do not need to be a veteran or a DAV member. You just need to have the willingness to help our veterans and have a valid driver's license. Sign up now at davma.org. That's davma.org.
Creating a trust helps you prepare for the unknown. Revocable and irrevocable trusts are most common, but contain significant differences. Cushing & Dolan's new guide called The Difference Between Revocable and Irrevocable Trusts may help you choose the right trust for you and your family. Call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699, or request the guide online at LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
Find daily interviews and full shows of the Financial Exchange on our YouTube page. Like us on YouTube and get caught up on anything and everything you might have missed. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
This segment of the Financial Exchange is brought to you in part by the U.S. Virgin Islands Department of Tourism. The U.S. Virgin Islands is the perfect destination for your next vacation. Enjoy St. Croix, St. Thomas, or St. John, and enjoy pristine beaches, world-class dining, and fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no passport required and no money to exchange. Go to visitusvi.com and book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com.
If you've heard anybody call this moment in time the most forecasted recession that didn't happen, Bloomberg has a piece out today that kind of explains what's going on there and why so many people would have anticipated a recession at this point. They go out and they interview a number of different business owners in terms of how they're reacting to this higher interest rate environment, and I'm sure they cherry-picked the stories that they were looking for here, but they largely found that, hey, a bunch of companies were planning on doing upgrades of one sort or another, and based on borrowing costs, weren't able to do so and have seen a slowdown in terms of their business. And you're shaking your head, Paul, because I'm guessing you're responding to the cherry-picking type of story about this. But there are real businesses that are not moving forward with transactions or not moving forward with expansions based on higher interest rates. What would your counterpoint be?
No, I'm not against that notion. I mean, this is the whole intention of the Fed in the first place, is you increase interest rates. As a result, businesses are more reticent to expand their factories, to hire more employees, to spend more because they're going to have to borrow it at a higher rate of interest. Don't get me wrong. I understand that. That's the whole focus for
the whole premise
effort
of the Fed of raising rates.
However, what bothered me more about the piece is this idea that, this Michigan maker of cutting tools, they delayed spending this year because they thought there were going to be cuts. That's what's frustrating me the most, is that's a cherry-picking notion to see. Everyone in the most optimistic version in December of 2023 anticipated that there will be 3 cuts over the course of this year. The cuts come at 25 basis point increments. So if you're at 5.3% right now and the Fed funds rates are between 5 and 5.25, 3 cuts to that is still going to land you at 4.25 or 4.5, depending on where it ends up settling if they do go through with the 3. So this notion that you're going to delay spending if you're borrowing on some sort of variable rate vehicle out there that is 4.25 plus a couple percentage basis points or a couple hundred basis points on top of that. Okay, you're talking about borrowing costs maybe from 8% to 6.5 or 7. On a large scale deal, I'm not going to completely bid that up. That's less, but it's not so much less that it should completely halt plans. We're not talking about, you weren't going to go back to 5% borrowing rates. That just wasn't going to happen this year. And that's what frustrates me about the piece, is this idea that, if we had gotten these cuts, that would have really changed things. That's the cherry picking aspect.
Well, yeah, and remember too, though, and who knows where these people thought rates were going to be, but remember that while the Fed was saying, hey, maybe there'd be 3 cuts this year, markets themselves, if you listen to the Fed, then you heard, rates are going from the Fed funds rate going from 5.25 to maybe 4.5, if you're lucky. If you listen to markets, it was, Fed funds rate going from 5.25 down to, at some point, I think it was 1.7% of cuts being priced in. So, going from 5.25 down to below 4% was what the market was telling you. In either case, the piece to remember about this is, yes, there are thousands, probably tens of thousands of small businesses that are changing their plans based on prevailing interest rates right now and cutting spending, maybe cutting headcount here and there. There are also some of the largest employers in the country, Walmart, Microsoft, Apple, that are barely impacted by higher rates at all. Right. In fact, they could be benefiting from this right now. Apple in particular, I wonder if I can look this up. So how much cash does Apple have on hand?
No, these big behemoth companies, to further your point, Mike, they're not as subject to interest rate pressure. It's the small businesses that are going to be impacted much more significantly by this. But hey, you can't have it both ways.
Right. As of March 2024, Apple was sitting on $67 billion. Now, I don't know that they're earning 5% interest on that across the board, but they're sitting on $67 billion. They, to my knowledge, have not needed to borrow any new money. They took out a bunch of loans back in 2020, 2021, refinanced their debt at these fixed rates because, again, a company like Apple doesn't need to go to a bank, right? They just float a bond. It's oversubscribed. They lock in rates for a decade. And so, as is the same with American households, there are some households that are really struggling with higher rates. There are some businesses that are as well. There are other businesses, and the other businesses happen to be some of the largest ones in the country, that do not have much of an issue with this. And I think Morgan Stanley talking about this is an interesting example here where they have attempted to set up their business in a way that they are not terribly worried about higher interest rates, which ultimately can cause a recession. But the CEO's point, he's quoted as saying, we know we don't do unsecured credit in emerging markets, one of the typical areas that is blown up historically when high U.S. interest rates hit. Credit cards through a loan cycle, again, what we are exposed to during these points in time. Morgan Stanley at least saying, hey, we're not hurting too much with this higher interest rate environment.
They've really shifted their business to be much more focused on acquiring executive stock company plans from different public companies out there, as well as generating revenue from investment banking and the advisory side. Those kind of make up their income streams. So while they're immune on the interest rate side of things, certainly they're subject to the market, which has done really well this year, but not discussed here. If the advisory
should the S&P 500 fall by 20%, you have a large wealth management business that's not going to do so well.
Every business out there has its risks, certainly in the financial industry, and they're right. They're less subject to sort of the interest rate side of things, but that doesn't mean that there's a pressure elsewhere. Investment banking, too, that can dry up really quickly. We saw that over the course of 2023 in terms of limited deal activity there. The one other piece that I wanted to spin back to on just household debt and the country in general is I hate when news pieces out there, Mike, use a dollar figure to say this is the highest household debt that we've reached as a country, $17.7 trillion.
Not useful.
It's so... It just drives me insane because...
Explain why. So, again, they're pointing out that, hey, U.S. household debt, all-time high, sitting at $17 trillion probably?
$17.7 trillion of household debt as of 2024. That's an all-time high. It just drives me insane because we all know about inflation in this country. That
we got a pretty good lesson on that over the last couple of years, didn't we?
This house in Needham is the highest value that we've ever seen in history. Yeah, because 50 years ago, it wasn't worth as much because the dollar and the inflation level wasn't the same. It's just that dollar figure piece. You have to use percentages when you're doing these comparisons. And if you look at household debt relative to GDP that this country generates, we are nowhere near the levels of 2008, which was close to 100%. We sit at 75% household debt relative to what this country produces from a GDP perspective. So that's what drives me insane is just a side note.
Can you repeat that figure for me? So in 07-08, when we were sitting in the middle of the what turned into a mortgage crisis, household debt to GDP was sitting at around 100%.
98.7% in Q1 of 2008.
And we have not been anywhere since, is what that chart seems to indicate to me.
Completely downward. So we're at 74% right now, hovering between 74 and 75. And historically, if you look back, granted in the 50s and 60s, it was much lower than that, but we're in a different borrowing cycle and GDP has changed significantly as well. But really over the course of the last 25 years, I will say it's between 70 and 75, but really peaking in around that 2008 to 2010 range when the economy reversed. So that's why it drives me crazy when you say 17.7 trillion of household debt. Yeah, things are more expensive and those dollar numbers are bigger now.
Yeah. That's a very, very important context. We've been highlighting credit card debt reaching all-time highs, for example. And
it's another good example of it.
Again, not a good thing. I do not applaud this number, but when you look at the total outstanding credit card debt, it's basically exactly where it was in 2019, plus 20%.
Study default rates, study percentages. That's the better thing to focus on when you're looking at historical
Otherwise,
context.
This stuff can scare the living hell out of you. Right? Just unfathomable. I can't say that word. Levels of debt when you express it in dollars, but when you express it in percentage of GDP or percentage of historical numbers, you start to question it a bit. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, full market update on Wall Street Watch.
Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter @TFE Show. Breaking business news is always first, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Are you looking to volunteer for an amazing nonprofit organization that helps our veterans? The DAV Department of Massachusetts Transportation Network needs volunteers right now. This network provides free transportation to and from any VA medical appointment for veterans of all eras. To become a volunteer driver, you do not need to be a veteran or a DAV member. You just need to have the willingness to help our veterans and have a valid driver's license. Sign up now at davma.org. That's davma.org.
Creating a trust helps you prepare for the unknown. Revocable and irrevocable trusts are most common, but contain significant differences. Cushing & Dolan's new guide called The Difference Between Revocable and Irrevocable Trusts may help you choose the right trust for you and your family. Call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699, or request the guide online at legalexchangeshow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Are you retired like me, and you just found out you owe the IRS a ton of money? Well, what would your life be like if they took your retirement savings away from you? They can do it, and your property. If you owe the IRS back taxes or you haven't filed in a while, the Tax Relief Line is here to help you. They can stop the IRS from taking your retirement savings. If you qualify, you could have your tax bill reduced to zero. That's right, if you're retired and you owe the IRS a lot in back taxes, you could have your entire tax bill reduced to zero due. The IRS has now hired thousands of new employees, so they're ready to come after you. Don't let them take your retirement savings or property. Make this free call now.
800-251-2153. 800-251-2153. 800-251-2153. That's 800-251-2153.
There's no better place to vacation than the United States Virgin Islands. St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John have everything you need to enjoy a spectacular romantic getaway or a week-long family vacation. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. The weather is perfect all year round, so book now and experience the most beautiful beaches anywhere in the Caribbean. World cuisine, iconic history, a wide variety of water sports, and an energetic nightlife. There's no money to exchange, no passport required, and travel from New England could not be easier. Make your plans now by going to visitusvi.com. Learn about all 3 islands and plan the ideal vacation for you and your family. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. So head to visitusvi.com for more information and to reserve your trip today. Go to visitusvi.com. That's visitusvi.com.
This is Tucker Silva of the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke with the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with your Financial Exchange Quick Tip of the Day. And today we're talking about the differences between revocable and irrevocable trusts. Todd, when would it make sense to use an irrevocable trust versus a revocable trust?
Yeah, so in this case, you really need to think about a couple of things. One, how much you're worth. Obviously, if you're worth, well over 4 or 5 million, 6 million, probably you're self-insured, so you're not so concerned about nursing home planning, and therefore the irrevocable Medicaid trust that we're talking about here might not be as applicable. But 4 million and under, folks are saying, and the other issue would be over age 60, let's say. And there's no rule of thumb, but 60, 65 is a great time to be thinking about protecting assets from the nursing home because it takes 5 years to do it. So if that's the case, then an irrevocable trust would make sense. And don't be put off by the word irrevocable, because you will find that the differences between revocable and irrevocable, at least these Medicaid trusts, is very, very few and far between. You're still very much in control. You live in your house. You enjoy your income. You manage your money. You buy and sell your property. It doesn't matter that it's irrevocable, so don't be afraid of it.
The estate planning experts at Cushing & Dolan have written a brand new guide that will answer the most common questions you have about the differences between revocable and irrevocable trusts. You can request this guide by calling 866-848-5699. That's 848-5699, or you can also request it from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. Time now for Wall Street Watch, a complete look at what's moving markets so far today, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
All right, markets are currently down kind of across the board here. The Dow is down 250 points, but that's heading in the right direction. It started the day off down 300 points. The S&P 500 is down just under 17 points, and NASDAQ is down 12 points. Currently, Eli Lilly shares are flat after a panel of FDA advisors recommended the approval of its Alzheimer drug known as donanemab. General Motors stock is up 1.3% after its board authorized a $6 billion stock buyback program. E-commerce company Shopify is up a 1.25% after JP Morgan initiated coverage with an overweight rating. In a client note, the investment firm said the recent pullback in Shopify's stock, not going to continue there. Apple shares are up 4% a day after the iPhone maker's Worldwide Developers Conference, where it revealed its artificial intelligence plans called Apple Intelligent. The company also said Siri will harness OpenAI's ChatGPT. Mike and Paul will get more into that story next. GameStop shares are up 2%, continuing its volatile ride. The video game retailer fell about 12% yesterday, continuing a decline from Friday, spurred by a surprise earnings report and meme stock leader Keith Gill's first live stream in a few years. That is Wall Street Watch. I am Ben Kitchen.
Apple stock up about 4% in early trading today. Yesterday at their Worldwide Developers Conference, to close things out, they had a pretty big announcement when it comes to artificial intelligence and finally answering some of the questions that investors and I think some, but not all, have been pressuring Apple on, which is, what are you going to do with AI? And the answer seems to be, for now, we're going to use ChatGPT in a bunch of stuff that we do. So what was the actual announcement here from Apple?
Well, I was going to ask you, what is the big announcement? No,
the big announcement is that you can now use ChatGPT on your iPhone to write your kid a bedtime story, was the example that was used.
No, Mike, you can do, yeah, exactly. You can do custom emojis and image generation on iOS 18. There was this story back when blockchain was really popular and all of the crypto sort of phenomenon, where there was this company, Long Island Iced Tea, that converted themselves into Long Island blockchain, and all of a sudden the stock shot up by a absorbent amount of percentages at a given period of time. And I'm not saying Apple is anywhere near that. We know they're a behemoth, but this idea just in general, Mike, if you say you're doing something with AI, now immediately here we have Apple up 4% today, and I read
to a new all-time high, by the way.
I read all this news, and I'm not saying there's anything against Apple as its core business in terms of what it does, but what this rumored, AI improvements are going to have, how does that make Apple more money? Because iOS 18 is going to allow me to do custom emojis and, mess around with photos on my phone. I just don't understand that, and provide a better Siri voice assistant, which has been atrocious, in my opinion, to start with. My dad uses it for text messages. It drives me absolutely insane when you're sitting in a room with him and he reads off to...
My wife gets those texts from her father, and they are just... You can't read them. They are completely... You have no idea what he's saying, but he has to use it because he can't really see his phone screen very well, and he hasn't figured out how to increase the text size. That's his option.
What do you think of this game, period? Just to hear him read it off drives me crazy. So maybe Siri is long due for these type of updates, but bottom line, Mike, unless I'm missing something other than just saying that they're partnering with OpenAI, which I guess is somewhat noteworthy and exciting, none of these changes to me seem like more money in Apple's pocket right away.
Well, no, in fact, I think that there's a really compelling argument that it will detract from money in their pocket, because who knows exactly what the deal is with ChatGPT, but what they've set up here is not the same thing that you would do by, let's say you go onto a web browser right now and access ChatGPT, which anybody can do right now. They're one of their versions is free. They also have paid versions of ChatGPT. That is not what Apple is doing, because quite honestly, that would be nothing. That would be nothing new from what you can do on your iPhone today. Instead, their plan is to integrate that messaging directly natively on your phone. And what they are saying from a privacy perspective here is that while this iteration of artificial intelligence will learn a lot about you and will start, guessing what you're going to text and email and search and be able to basically move things faster along for you, that same information that the local artificial intelligence learns about you will not go back to GPT, will not go back to OpenAI, will not go even back to Apple to teach, well, that actually hasn't been clarified, will not go back to OpenAI and ChatGPT to allow that artificial intelligence to learn more about you and use your texting, your writing as a learning source for the artificial intelligence. And for some, that's a big privacy concern. It's okay, what exactly is this OpenAI what is this artificial intelligence utilizing my data for? And that's Apple's argument is, hey, they've really built their brand, at least over the last 3 to 5 years, on that privacy piece, right? Remember when they changed their Apple logo to the lock at one point? They've really focused on that, and that's their argument here is, hey, unlike utilizing ChatGPT on a web browser, unlike I'm guessing using Google's artificial intelligence on their phones, we're going to keep this local and native to you and not allow it to go back into the entire universe. To your point, though, that ain't going to be free, right? Like, if you're OpenAI, you're going to need to get paid for that because you get, from what I can tell, no other benefit other than reputation.
Sure.
Right, like yes, my software is being utilized on every Apple phone that gets sold in the future.
It's a lot of people to
helps
touch.
reputation, but those queries are not free. that computing power is very expensive, and Apple is going to be paying for it. We have no idea what they'll pay for it and whether or not they'll ever have to charge Apple users for this service. That would be my guess, is if you're 5 years from now, if you're going to continue to roll this out and have it widely available to all Apple users, it ain't going to be free, would be my guess.
Yeah, the first stop is mass adoption, getting everyone comfortable with the technology and making it so embedded that you can't live without it.
Yep.
But there is all sorts of data concerns that arise when you're dealing with these behemoth tech companies and all the money that's at stake out here. As to be clear, it seems like Apple is going to keep it separate, but I feel like all of us collectively kind of raise an eyebrow or roll our eyes when you hear some of that info.
I would believe that the data collected is not going to go back to OpenAI. I am quite confident that Apple will learn a whole lot about artificial intelligence from the usage of this type of software, and will learn a lot more about you. And, what they do with that information, right? Certainly send you upgrades on new products. Hey, maybe you should be utilizing our music service, this, that, or the other. But they can do that now. The question to me would be, does artificial intelligence allow them to learn enough about you that they can, suck up some of the revenue from Facebook and Google? Right? Like, how much do those companies make in advertising dollars, and how much would companies pay for access to know, hey, Paul Lane is most definitely going to buy a grill in the next 6 months, so flood him with ads based on what we Apple know about him. So that's of interest to me. Separately, Elon Musk, probably sour grapes rather than genuine concern, but saying that should OpenAI get fully integrated into the operating system of Apple, then he would ban all Apple devices from his companies. So that does not mean you wouldn't be able to use X on an Apple device, Twitter. It does mean that if you were employed by Twitter or by Tesla or by SpaceX, you would not be able to have an Apple device probably in the work environment or as a work phone, which Apple wouldn't care about because that's very few of their total sales. But also, my other argument is, if Apple goes and does this, and you say, okay, no more Apple devices, let's go get some Googles instead. Guess what? They're probably going to be doing it too, right? Like, what are you going to do? Say, hey, going forward, if you work for Tesla, you must use a Huawei device. I don't think so. I don't think that's going to be the net result. So Elon Musk was early on part of the OpenAI team. They had a falling out. He's been pretty public about his complaints and concerns about OpenAI. Whether or not they are genuine concerns about artificial intelligence, I have my doubts. I think it's likely some sour grapes that, hey, this has been a really successful product and I walked out on it. Or was forced out, or we don't exactly know, but it seems a lot like sour grapes, given that he is developing his own artificial intelligence alongside all this.
That's all you need to say, is that he co-founded OpenAI. There was a falling out. They had disagreement over the direction of the company because, believe it or not, it was founded initially as a nonprofit. It is built out.
Still operates as a nonprofit.
It still operates as a nonprofit. However, it has a subsidiary arm that is generated for profit. And here you sit today with Elon Musk having his own AI startup out there, like you mentioned. there's a lot at stake for him. So obviously he's going to do everything in his power to use his public platform to admonish, OpenAI any way, shape, or form that he can.
Let's take a quick break. When we come back, a couple of financial news stories. One, all about this large cap stock rally, and two, about confusion around 401ks. We'll be right back with that after this.
Miss any of the show? The Financial Exchange Show podcast is available on Apple, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Hit the subscribe button and leave us a 5-star review. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Hi, I'm Lisa Hughes. This Veterans Day weekend, help honor all who've served our country and join WBZ for the annual DAV 5K, a run or walk to support disabled vets here in Massachusetts with housing, transportation, and other critical support. Saturday, November 9th at DCR's Castle Island in South Boston. Let's thank all who have sacrificed for our freedom and help our heroes on their road to recovery. Visit DAV5K.Boston to register or donate today.
The DAV 5K Boston is presented by Veterans Development Corporation.
Creating a trust helps you prepare for the unknown. Revocable and irrevocable trusts are most common, but contain significant differences. Cushing & Dolan's new guide called The Difference Between Revocable and Irrevocable Trusts may help you choose the right trust for you and your family. Call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699, or request the guide online at legalexchangeshow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and/or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Inheriting an IRA was a straightforward process until the passage of the Secure Act in 2019 and the more recent changes that have made things a bit more complicated. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and it's really important that you develop a strategy to deal with these changes to the law, or you and your family could face significant tax consequences in the future. If you've inherited money from your spouse, the process remains relatively simple. But if you're inheriting an IRA from someone other than your spouse, there are numerous issues that you'll want to be aware of to protect those assets. Call us right now at 800-393-4001 and ask for your copy of our new guide called The Complexities of Inherited IRAs. That number again is 800-393-4001, or you can also request it online from our website, armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. There's no better place to vacation than the United States Virgin Islands. St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John have everything you need to enjoy a spectacular romantic getaway or a week-long family vacation. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. The weather is perfect all year round, so book now and experience the most beautiful beaches anywhere in the Caribbean. World cuisine, iconic history, a wide variety of water sports, and an energetic nightlife. There's no money to exchange, no passport required, and travel from New England could not be easier. Make your plans now by going to visitusvi.com. Learn about all 3 islands and plan the ideal vacation for you and your family. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. So head to visitusvi.com for more information and to reserve your trip today. Go to visitusvi.com. That's visitusvi.com.
For 40 years, Cancer Support Community has been a relentless ally for anyone impacted by cancer, with free services provided online and in person, with their newest location in Massachusetts. Connect with Cancer Support Community Massachusetts for free emotional support, educational resources, patient navigation, financial counseling, and more. 617-797-3391. CancerSupportMass.org. CancerSupportMass.org.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
This is your home for the most comprehensive coverage of the economy and the trends on Wall Street. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
I hate to say that we as a society are getting dumber, and I don't think we are. I genuinely push back on those stories, but we certainly are getting further and further away from facts. So I'm going to talk about a few of these that are just absolutely confounding to me. There's a piece out from, is this Barron's? Who put this together? Barron's, I think, today, that according to Principal, who did a survey, they looked at specifically people who are not contributing to a 401k plan. And they asked them a bunch of questions, and a surprising fact came out. Of those people that were not contributing anything to their 401k plan, 59% of them thought that they were contributing to that plan. According to a Harris poll a few weeks ago, 55% of Americans think that right now we are in a recession. We are provably not. 49% of Americans, again, this was a few weeks ago, thought that the stock market was down year over year. In fact, it's near all-time highs. Yesterday, it hit an all-time high. So, again. And 49% of people thought that unemployment is at a 50-year high. Unemployment is near a 50-year low. So, again, I'm not saying we're getting dumber, but we certainly are paying a lot less attention to facts. And none of these are harmless, but some are more harmful than others. Most harmful would be you're not contributing to your own retirement and think that you are. Like, am I the only person that opens up a pay stub every once in a while and tries to figure out where all my money's going?
Just crazy.
Right? Like, this is what everybody complains about. Why are we not opening our paychecks anymore? Like, why do I have to pay Massachusetts all of this money? Oh, that's why. Okay. Oh, and then there goes my 401k. At least I can feel somewhat good about that piece. But, man, it's nearly 60% of people who are not contributing anything think that they are, and clearly haven't opened up a paycheck to read through and understand what those different line items are.
Just insane. I mean, they mentioned one example where the prior employers had the same retirement custodian plan. So they were at Principal at another job. They went to a new company that also used Principal, so they had that existing balance out there. So some people were under the impression, hey, I have a Principal account. It just keeps going. Obviously, every single time you get a new job, you got to proactively enroll in the 401k plan. It seems like the auto-enrollment piece is becoming more and more prevalent.
Yeah,
they
that's
claim
a good thing.
that for larger companies at Principal, 80% of them are at that automatic enrollment. Only 29% of their total clients, though, of all sizes for Principal, use that automatic enrollment feature. But it's so critical to get in and get started early. The other thing that frustrated me is this notion that some people in this survey noted that it was a bad time to start contributing to retirement. If you have a 30-plus year work time horizon, it's never a bad time.
Unless you're going to die tomorrow, it's probably a good time to start saving for your retirement.
Economic conditions aside, political conditions aside, historically, if you look at the market and investing over time, there's never a bad time to do it if you have a long time horizon ahead of you, which many people should have if you're working.
So on a self-assessment time, and I get this stuff, like, we're busy. Mm-hmm. Everybody's busy. You might be working 2 jobs. You might have 3 kids at home. And looking at this stuff takes time. And so if you're going through that self-assessment and you might be finding yourself in this category, like, ask yourself, do I know how much of my paycheck goes to my retirement savings? Do I know if I have life insurance through work? Right? Like, if you don't have time or don't know the answers to those questions, A, go educate yourself and find out. But B, if you honestly self-assess and say, I'm just not going to dedicate the time to look at this stuff and review it regularly, you're probably a great candidate to talk to somebody who will do that for you, a financial advisor of some sort that's going to keep you on a path so that you're not surprised 2 years later saying, wow, I thought money was going to my 401k. Turns out it's not, and I need to do something about that now and play catch up. If you're finding yourself in those situations, and I don't know that a financial advisor is right for everyone, right? There's a large portion of people who do keep track of this stuff, who, spend the time dedicating to it, and you might not need that professional guidance. But if you're honestly self-assessing and finding yourself in that other category of, I just don't have the time, the knowledge, the expertise to go invest in this, I think that genuinely that's a good opportunity to speak with somebody who will do it and will keep your feet to the fire on these things. And if you'd like to talk to somebody at the Armstrong Advisory Group, the phone number is 800-393-4001. We have offices throughout New England, from Portland, Maine, down to near the Hartford area of Connecticut, and we'll meet with you in person, over the phone, via Zoom, whatever's most convenient to assess your personal financial situation and keep you on track. Once again, that phone number is 800-393-4001, or you can book a call back at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
The Baltimore Key Shipping Channel has now fully reopened after the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse. This was such a disaster. So Chubb was one of the insurers on this, and typically when you have a big claim like this, an insurer will step in, they'll go assess it, they'll go, try and figure it out and see exactly what the damage is going to be. They might end up suing the city in court, they might, try and hold up the payments. In this case, Chubb, the insurer of this, I don't remember what the limits were, but they just said, this is so clearly going to hit the maximum coverage amount that there's no sense in us delaying this or trying to figure out a way to not get out of paying. We're just going to pay the city of Baltimore the entire amount owed on this insurance policy immediately because it was such a disaster. But traffic is again flowing through the channel, fully reopened after the bridge collapse. Going to be years, of course, before that thing gets reconstructed, and there's probably hundreds of small businesses around the bridge that are going to go out of business because they won't have the customer traffic that they normally would here. And the engineering feat to get this thing just not even fixed, but just like to demolish this thing and get it out of the water and refloat the boat was really fascinating to read about because there's really no playbook for this sort of thing.
50,000 tons of bridge wreckage from the Patapsco River. Just incredible that they were able to do it this efficiently. I mean, that's just a tremendous undertaking.
I just get really impressed by this stuff because, in my line of work, there's nothing quite like that. And, to listen to somebody be like, oh, yeah, if we snap this wire, then these three things are going to happen. And, I get very impressed by engineering because it might as well be magic to me. Quick break. We'll be right back with a lot more here on the Financial Exchange.
If you served in the Marine Corps, by now you know about the contaminated water problem at Camp Lejeune. If you were stationed or worked at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1987, you probably have a lot of questions. We have some answers. You could be entitled to compensation. Billions of dollars are being allocated to pay for damages to anyone stationed at Camp Lejeune during that time. Unfortunately, it appears that officials may have known the contaminated water problem existed and did little to protect their men. The Semper Fi code was not honored. If you or someone in your family has developed a serious illness, including various forms of cancer, call this Camp Lejeune legal support line right now. You can't turn back the clock and change what happened, but you can certainly call right now and learn your rights as a Marine. Here's the number.
800-477-1736. 800-477-1736. That's 800-477-1736. Paid for by Legal Alert Line.
Are you retired like me and you just found out you owe the IRS a ton of money? Well, what would your life be like if they took your retirement savings away from you? They can do it and your property. If you owe the IRS back taxes or you haven't filed in a while, the Tax Relief Line is here to help you. They can stop the IRS from taking your retirement savings. If you qualify, you could have your tax bill reduced to zero. That's right. If you're retired and you owe the IRS a lot in back taxes, you could have your entire tax bill reduced to zero due. The IRS has now hired thousands of new employees, so they're ready to come after you. Don't let them take your retirement savings or property. Make this free call now.
800-251-2153. 800-251-2153. 800-251-2153. That's 800-251-2153.
For 40 years, Cancer Support Community has been a relentless ally for anyone impacted by cancer, with free services provided online and in person, with their newest location in Massachusetts. Connect with Cancer Support Community Massachusetts for free emotional support, educational resources, patient navigation, financial counseling, and more. 617-797-3391. CancerSupportMass.org. CancerSupportMass.org.
This is the Money Matters Radio Network, WBNW 1120 AM and W275 CM FM, Concord, Boston, the Money Matters Radio Network.
Hi, this is Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group. We have a guide this month titled The Complexities of Inherited IRAs. Mike, with how the inherited IRA picture has changed in the last few years, one of the things that a lot of people need to consider is how to minimize taxation, not just across their own lifetime, but on a multi-generational basis once they're gone.
Yeah, and quite frankly, prior to these changes, IRAs were often used, especially Roth IRAs, as a kind of multi-generational inheritance plan. And these new rules have completely changed that, like I said, for most beneficiaries of retirement accounts. And so a lot of the planning that was done prior to 2020, if not having been looked at again, just might run contrary to your entire thoughts of what you did before these changes.
It seems to me that it makes sense now. You've got to consider the tax situation, age, and other characteristics of your beneficiaries who might not be spouses when figuring out who to name on your IRAs.
Yeah, not only that, and a lot of that stuff was considered prior too, but maybe you've got two kids with vastly different income situations. Do you consider naming one the traditional versus the other the Roth beneficiary in order to minimize total taxation across generations? These are complicated issues that I know it might sound like just applies to a small subset of Americans, but most people these days have a retirement account.
Our guide this month, again, it's titled The Complexities of Inherited IRAs, and the two ways to request it are by phone or online. Website is armstrongadvisory.com, or you can call 800-393-4001. That website, again, is armstrongadvisory.com, or the phone number is 800-393-4001. The
proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Creating a trust is oftentimes the first step in the estate planning process. It helps you prepare for the unknown as well as the inevitable. Revocable and irrevocable trusts are the most common types of trusts, but there are significant differences between the two. So before you make that crucial decision, call Cushing & Dolan at 866-848-5699. Ask for their new guide called The Difference Between Revocable and Irrevocable Trusts. Let them help you understand which may be right for you and your family and protect the wealth that you've achieved throughout your working years. Protecting your assets is paramount to being able to enjoy your retirement years, so call right now. 866-848-5699 and get your free guide today. Give yourself the peace of mind you need as you build your estate plan. Again, that number is 866-848-5699 or request the guide online from their website, LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. There's no better place to vacation than the United States Virgin Islands. St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John have everything you need to enjoy a spectacular romantic getaway or a week-long family vacation. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. The weather is perfect all year round, so book now and experience the most beautiful beaches anywhere in the Caribbean. World cuisine, iconic history, a wide variety of water sports, and an energetic nightlife. There's no money to exchange, no passport required, and travel from New England could not be easier. Make your plans now by going to visitusvi.com. Learn about all three islands and plan the ideal vacation for you and your family. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. So head to visitusvi.com for more information and to reserve your trip today. Go to visitusvi.com. That's visitusvi.com.
Hi, I'm Lisa Hughes. This Veterans Day weekend, help honor all who've served our country and join WBZ for the annual DAV 5K. a run or walk to support disabled vets here in Massachusetts with housing, transportation, and other critical support. Saturday, November 9th at DCR's Castle Island in South Boston. Let's thank all who have sacrificed for our freedom and help our heroes on their road to recovery. Visit DAV5K.Boston to register or donate today.
The DAV 5K Boston is presented by Veterans Development Corporation.
Creating a trust helps you prepare for the unknown. Revocable and irrevocable trusts are most common, but contain significant differences. Cushing & Dolan's new guide called The Difference Between Revocable and Irrevocable Trusts may help you choose the right trust for you and your family. Call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699, or request the guide online at legalexchangeshow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and/or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor that provides investment advisory services. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else, and do not guarantee profit. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Mike Armstrong and Paul Lane. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting DAV5K.Boston and making a donation today. The DAV 5K Boston is presented by Veterans Development Corporation. This is the Financial Exchange with Mike Armstrong and Paul Lane.
Good morning. Good morning and welcome back to the Financial Exchange. Sorry, my headphones are sounding a little bit off, but welcome back to the Financial Exchange. It's Mike Armstrong, Paul Lane, and Ben Kitchen with you on a Tuesday morning ahead of a Federal Reserve meeting tomorrow, as well as a print on inflation. We'll get the Consumer Price Index tomorrow morning at 8:30. Expectations for all prices is a 0.1% increase. That would make the year-over-year rate of inflation hit about 3.4%. Core prices expected to increase when you strip out the food and energy, which have been a bit of a drag on inflation recently. You will see prices increase by 0.3%, according to the average by economists that were polled. The core prices still expected to increase by 3.5%. Puts the Federal Reserve in this conundrum where inflation has dramatically decreased from the highs seen back in 2022, however, still well above their target level of price increases, which is for that 2% increase level. And while they don't look at CPI as their preferred measure of inflation, even the PCE numbers that are getting printed are still in the high 2s, low 3s, so not quite achieving their goals yet. Markets are staging a bit of a turnaround in early trading here. We now have the NASDAQ up 25 points, or 0.15%. The S&P down 11 points, which would be 1/5%. And the Dow Jones Industrial Average off 200 points, about 0.5% in early trading here. Apple moving the markets up as a whole, still one of the largest companies out there, if not the largest, up this morning about 5.25% after the release of their partnership with ChatGPT and OpenAI in regards to their phones. So getting a bit of a boost today, up to $203 per share, which, if I'm not mistaken, is an all-time high on Apple's share price. So that was the one piece we were talking about yesterday when it came to Apple, was all these articles being read about, the pressure is really on Apple to prove something when it comes to OpenAI and artificial intelligence and catch up. And Chuck and I were looking at each other like, this is a company whose stock price is off like 1.5% from all-time highs. Like, who exactly is asking these questions? Because clearly it's not shareholders, right? Like, Southwest has lost 50% of its value in the last 3 years. Investors are asking them tough questions.
Definitely.
Nobody's asking Apple tough questions right now.
No.
But nonetheless, responding yesterday with a rollout of a new AI system on their iPhones.
And up 5% on the news, I guess.
Exactly. Speaking of, I think, kind of unexpected stories, retail staging a bit of a comeback right now, or perhaps just a right-sizing of the retail landscape. Vacancy, according to the New York Times, is the lowest it's been in 2 decades, at 5.4%, according to a recent report. Properties are thriving, even as retailers like Macy's are shuttering stores, and obviously we've had a lot of large anchor chains go belly up over the last few, decade and a half. And this runs directly in contrast to a lot of the stories I remember from the beginning of COVID, right? Which is, hey, is this the death of in-person shopping? Are we just, so many more people are used to shopping online now. And that part's definitely true, right? Like, how many people do you know, Paul, who, let's focus on folks, maybe 70 and older who had never shopped online before and learned how to do it during COVID. For me, it was a lot of people I knew in that age.
Huge adoption, yeah. And you could see by the transaction volume, e-commerce got up to, I believe, close to 25% of all transactions. And I don't know where it sits today, but certainly a huge surge. A decade's worth of e-commerce adoption probably condensed down into a couple-year period.
So, there's a few questions to this. One would be, how much of this is real demand from tenants to be in these spaces versus, how many of these centers have just shut down and either been converted or demolished? I think of a few right off the top of my head. There's the, I think it's the Crystal Mall down in the Waterford, Connecticut area that's shut down. There's the, what's the one over on Route 9 in the Boston area? I think that's Brookline or Chestnut Hill that converted a few years ago into medical offices. Yes. So there's been a lot of that over the last few years of these buildings finding new purpose. And so I would imagine some of it is a overall net decrease in shopping square footage across the country. But for this to hit a multi-decade low of vacancy rates, that does say something. And I think it speaks something about the strength of the consumer. Maybe it doesn't speak directly to, preferences because, hey, the economy might just be ripping on all cylinders right now. And so even if preferences for in-person shopping are lower than they were a couple decades ago, they're still floating because spending levels have just been so high.
It's a repositioning of what the consumer wants. It's more of an experiential sort of driven mantra for these shopping centers rather than gone are the days, Mike, of the Macy's shopping center in the mall that takes up thousands of square feet in a mall, because now, for the most part, and I'm generalizing here, apparel and food, a lot of that is driven either directly at your grocery store, which actually those are being built into some of these shopping centers here. The shopping center always is going to want traffic, and certainly a grocery store would do that. But this idea of these Abercrombie and Fitch's, these, Forever 21, these physical store locations that have so much in the way of square footage, that is a bygone era because there's so much apparel that you can just purchase online instead. But in its place is more restaurants, more of ideas like pickleball, axe throwing, experiential sort of venues that will bring people in and perhaps will allow for them to shop at other places at their convenience. But what's bringing them in the door is what they're going to do rather than, going to buy something.
Yeah, I think it's been a mixed bag on some of those things. I mean, we talked yesterday about how landlords are really favoring restaurants right now, and that just seems like a dangerous game to play because few businesses fail as spectacularly and frequently as restaurants, so see how that goes long term. But I think about a local shopping mall around here. They put a Wegmans into one of the anchor spots and lasted 3 years, and then that thing closed out, and Wegmans said, yeah, no thank you, this isn't really working for us. So they're testing new things out. Some of it's working. The other thing that just sticks with me on this is, shopping malls were supposed to just be the demise of the American real estate market, and it's all anybody wanted to talk about over the last decade was, look out for those shopping malls. They're doing just fine. They didn't sink the economy. They didn't destroy the real estate market. And they're sitting at multi-decade lows in terms of vacancies right now.
Our office is next.
Yeah, so, I mean, again, that's where I'm going with this, is now everybody's so convinced that offices are going to cause the next recession and be this long-term drag on the economy. Maybe they're right? Like, I'm not saying anybody's wrong about that. I genuinely don't know. But it's interesting to me to take a look at this story of, we've got way too much shopping center square footage. I myself have talked about how, I think when I looked at it last, the square footage per capita of retail space in the United States was something like twice as high as any other country in the world. I think Canada was second, and it was still like half of these. Again, I'm looking at square footage per person in the country, and it was something like twice even Canada's. I said, man, maybe that just needs to correct, and it hasn't. We still have more square footage per capita of shopping space than any other country in the world, but they seem to be, again, comparatively healthy at this point in time. So will office space follow a similar path? We've talked about all the challenges in converting that to something else, and I don't know what you do with a 50-story office tower other than put offices in it, but look, shopping malls, at least temporarily, seem to have figured some of that stuff out.
I've always been a proponent that we're at 50-year lows in unemployment. If the pendulum at some point will swing back the other way, I'm not saying that offices will be the best investment, but there will become a time where the remote work will subside a little bit and there'll be more focus on office.
Speaking of which, like I said, we cover these stories almost every week, but Pimco is warning of more U.S. regional bank failure on exactly what we're talking about, which would be commercial office space primarily. They also cite malls as a problem, which, again, apparently John Murray didn't read the last story that we were just covering. But to be clear about this one, Pimco probably benefits if this happens. And so, again, important to kind of think about these things and read through beyond the headlines, because the quote from the Pimco guy that we're talking about here, quote, as stress loans grow due to maturities, however, we expect that banks will start selling these more challenged loans to reduce their troubled loan exposure. Adding that his team had been snapping up CRE loans offloaded by some large U.S. banks for the past 18 months. So sometimes you write a story like this comes up and you say, okay, this independent expert is talking about how banks are going to get into more trouble because of commercial office space. Sometimes you read it and you say, okay, so John, to be clear, are you cheering this on? Because it seems as though Pimco would financially benefit if more of these regional banks did have to offload some of their loans. And so, call that into question a little bit.
They are so distressed that we find them attractive from a buying perspective.
Yeah. Sure hope more of these banks go belly up because we are getting a steal on these loans. It seems to be some of the message here. Quick break. We're going to be right back with trivia next on the Financial Exchange.
Breaking business and financial news first throughout the day. Only here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. There's no better place to vacation than the United States Virgin Islands. St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John have everything you need to enjoy a spectacular romantic getaway or a week-long family vacation. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. The weather is perfect all year round, so book now and experience the most beautiful beaches anywhere in the Caribbean. World cuisine, iconic history, a wide variety of water sports, and an energetic nightlife. There's no money to exchange, no passport required, and travel from New England could not be easier. Make your plans now by going to visitusvi.com. Learn about all 3 islands and plan the ideal vacation for you and your family. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. So head to visitusvi.com for more information and to reserve your trip today. Go to visitusvi.com. That's visitusvi.com.
Inheriting an IRA was a straightforward process until the passage of the Secure Act in 2019 and the more recent changes that have made things a bit more complicated. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and it's really important that you develop a strategy to deal with these changes to the law, or you and your family could face significant tax consequences in the future. If you've inherited money from your spouse, the process remains relatively simple. But if you're inheriting an IRA from someone other than your spouse, there are numerous issues that you'll want to be aware of to protect those those assets. Call us right now at 800-393-4001 and ask for your copy of our new guide called The Complexities of Inherited IRAs. That number again is 800-393-4001, or you can also request it online from our website, armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. There's no better place to vacation than the United States Virgin Islands. St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John have everything you need to enjoy a spectacular romantic getaway or a week-long family vacation. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. The weather is perfect all year round, so book now and experience the most beautiful beaches anywhere in the Caribbean. World cuisine, iconic history, a wide variety of water sports, and an energetic nightlife. There's no money to exchange, no passport required, and travel from New England could not be easier. Make your plans now by going to visitusvi.com. Learn about all 3 islands and plan the ideal vacation for you and your family. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. So head to visitusvi.com for more information and to reserve your trip today. Go to visitusvi.com. That's visitusvi.com.
We are the Debt Destroyer Network. Any debt you have, credit card, tax, student loan debt, call now for free information that helps you destroy your debt. It's great advice. Plus, when you make this free call now, we have Debt Destroyer experts ready to help. They can show you how to destroy your debt and get your life back on track. Debt problems don't have to be overwhelming. You can live stress-free and debt-free. Credit cards, medical bills, IRS tax problems, even student loan debt. Learn about free programs offered by the credit card companies, hospitals, and even the government that can help slash your debt. Call the Debt Destroyer now for free information. Call now. 800-430-8804. 800-430-8804. 800-430-8804. Again, that's 800-430-8804.
Missed one of our shows? Catch up anytime by asking your Alexa smart speaker to play The Financial Exchange. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Trivia is brought to you by Applebee's. Take your friends or family to any area Applebee's and enjoy half-price late-night appetizers after 9 p.m., including boneless wings, spinach and artichoke dip, and warm pretzels dipped in beer cheese. And don't forget to join Club Applebee's to enjoy exclusive deals and specials. You'll get a free appetizer just for signing up. Now that's eating good in the neighborhood, void where prohibited, dine in only. Now everyone knows that Hartford is the state capital of Connecticut. If you didn't know, I'm sorry, I just spoiled it for you. But not everyone knows that Hartford shared capital duties with another Connecticut city from 1788 to 1875. Today's question, which Connecticut city did Hartford share capital duties with? Which Connecticut city did Hartford share capital duties with? Be the second person to text us at 617-362-1385 with the correct answer, and you'll win a Financial Exchange Show t-shirt and be registered to win a $100 gift card to Applebee's. Be sure to include the keyword Applebee's in your text. We'll give away the Applebee's gift card on Friday's show. That's 617-362-1385, and the second correct response will be our winner. See the complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
Quick bit of breaking non-financial news. Hunter Biden has been found guilty of gun charges by a federal court jury in Delaware. He's becoming the first child of a sitting U.S. president to be convicted of crimes, and I'm sure we'll have a lot more to learn about that in the coming days. Not likely something we'll be covering on this show, but that is the breaking news out of Delaware this morning. The stock market rally this year, we've talked about this once or twice, Paul, has been, well, almost entirely large cap. In fact, the differential between how large cap stocks and small cap stocks are performing this year in particular has been pretty historic in terms of that divergence. And reasons for this abound. People call out all sorts of different reasons for why this may be. And I'll be the first to admit that other than observing the difference and acknowledging its existence, I struggle myself to come up with a clear, cohesive theory on why this is distinctly happening. I've got plenty of potential theories. I just don't know that there's any evidence to support one versus the other. But to be clear here, year to date, the average return on companies with $1 trillion plus of market capitalization has been 40.9%. So
thanks, NVIDIA.
That's from Bespoke Investment Group is that data. That's, like Paul mentioned, mostly NVIDIA. Whereas companies with less than $1 trillion worth of market capitalization are up less than half of 1% year to date.
Less than half of 1%. Wow.
So, I mean, talk about concentration here. You've got a pretty significant portion of these returns coming from very large companies. And if you break this out into deciles here, so let's see, what did they do here? This is again by Bespoke. If you break out the 50 largest stocks in the S&P 500 and then do that with every 50 companies here, the smallest 50 have declined by 7%. Whereas the largest 50 have increased by 15.3%. Again, this is data from Bespoke Investment Group. And it follows a pretty clear trend line here. If you look at it from, scaling up with few exceptions, the larger the company, the better the return this year. And I wonder if you have any theory. One theory that's been floated has been the cost of debt. And we talked about earlier on the program how if you're Microsoft or Apple, higher interest rates really haven't negatively impacted you much because you already locked in your interest rates back in 2020, and so higher rates haven't been much of a problem. I floated that theory to Fandetti, and he pulled up some data, and the problem with that is that in the 70s and 80s, you had a very strong period of outperformance by smaller cap companies. And so kind of ran aground that theory that, hey, because of borrowing costs is why smaller companies are underperforming.
This has fascinated me because it's a really longer term trend than just this year, Mike. If you look back, and I love, Mark Venditti actually did this using Morningstar data. If you had invested $1 in large caps and small caps in 2000 through 2023, so over a 23-year period, that $1, if it was small caps would grow to $8. If that $1 was invested in large caps, it would grow to about 4.7, almost $5. So $1 to $8 for the small caps, 1 to 5 for the large caps. However, if you look at the last 13 years from 2010 post-financial crisis through 2023, if you put $1 into large caps, that dollar grew to about $6. Put into small caps, grew to $4. So there's been this divergence that has gone on over the last 10, 15 years. And theories that I float in my head that from an investing standpoint, it's always been critical from a long-term perspective to have exposure to small caps. Because if you look back 100 years, the divergence that I mentioned gets even wider and small caps outperform even greater. I just wonder if the public markets aren't being used as readily early on. You have so many of these companies that come out at IPOs at such large valuations. I mean, I was reading today when we were doing some of the OpenAI stuff, they're valued at $80 billion. That's not a public company yet at all. You've got Facebook when they came out public back in 2012. We can go on and on of list of others that when they were going public, typically small caps, and I have to look at the valuations here. I'm sure they've been updated. It was between 1 and 3 billion years ago when I was looking at it. Maybe it's a higher number now with inflation, but values of these companies going public are not falling often in that bucket. And I just wonder if the quality of companies is the same that it was 30 years ago. So
I've seen different data sources notate different things, but the number of publicly traded companies in the United States peaked somewhere in the late 90s to early 2000s. I've seen one number that it was 96, one number that was 2002 in terms of the peak of publicly traded companies, but since then it's been on a pretty steady decline, and I think it's below 1980 levels of publicly traded companies. So certainly I think private equity markets could be a piece of this. The other piece here just could be that, hey, our laws in the United States, due to really poor performance from the federal government in breaking up big companies that are considered monopolies by many, has been really unsuccessful over the last 2 decades, right? The last big breakup of a major tech company you've had was Microsoft in 90-something, right? So that could be the other piece of this here, is that our laws on the books today do a much worse job of addressing monopolistic power than they did in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. That between the fewer publicly traded companies and our inability to break up anti-competitive behavior may explain some of this.
And the mergers and acquisitions, which speaks to your point about how many companies were publicly listed at one point 20 years ago versus who are listed now, because think about the amount of mergers that we talk about on a daily basis. It was quiet over 23, but the last 5 years, there's a lot of them out there.
Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to have the trivia winner for
Dr. Silva of the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke with the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with your Financial Exchange quick tip of the day. And today we're talking about the differences between revocable and irrevocable trusts. Todd, is there a difference in the taxation of a revocable trust versus an irrevocable trust, and any difference in how you would file your income taxes?
So surprisingly, a lot of you might say, well, yeah, there should be a difference. And there is, but there really isn't. So let me explain. With a revocable trust, everything that you put in it is going to be titled under your social security number, like bank accounts and brokerage accounts, etc. Whereas items that you put into an irrevocable trust, like bank accounts and brokerage accounts or rental properties, those accounts would be set up under a tax ID number for the trust. So the trust now does need to file its own tax return. It's called a Form 1041. However, these Medicaid trusts are designed by us to make them grantor trusts for income tax purposes, which means you are the owner for income tax purposes, and all the income and gain gets reported on your personal return. So while you're filing a separate return for the irrevocable trust, you're paying exactly the same tax at your own rate, just like you did before the trust and just like you would with a revocable trust.
Well, the estate planning experts at Cushing & Dolan have written a brand new guide that will help you answer the most common questions you have about the differences between revocable and irrevocable trusts. You can request this brand new guide by calling 866-848-5699. That's 848-5699, or you can also request it from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Taxation is a critically important element to be aware of when you're building your estate plan, especially when it comes to understanding inherited IRAs. The tax treatment of these accounts depends on a variety of factors, including the specific type of IRA, the relationship between the deceased and the beneficiary, and the beneficiary's personal circumstances. In this month's new free guide from the Armstrong Advisory Group called The Complexities of Inherited IRAs, we'll help you understand the possible tax complications you could should face when inheriting an IRA. Plus, we'll walk you through the recent changes to federal rules regarding these accounts. Get your free guide today by calling 800-393-4001. 800-393-4001, or you can also request the guide at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Are you looking to volunteer for an amazing nonprofit organization that helps our veterans? The DAV Department of Massachusetts Transportation Network needs volunteers right now. This network provides free transportation to and from any VA medical appointment for veterans of all eras. To become a volunteer driver, you do not need to be a veteran or a DAV member. You just need to have the willingness to help our veterans and have a valid driver's license. Sign up now at davma.org. That's davma.org.
Creating a trust helps you prepare for the unknown. Revocable and irrevocable trusts are most common, but contain significant differences. Cushing & Dolan's new guide called The Difference Between Revocable and Irrevocable Trusts may help you choose the right trust for you and your family. Call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699, or request the guide online at legalexchangeshow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and/or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. The Financial Exchange Show podcast drops every day on Apple, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Hit that subscribe button and leave us a 5-star review. You're listening to the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
All right, today's trivia question was, which Connecticut city did Hartford share capital duties with? That'd be New Haven. For nearly 100 years, Connecticut had two state capitals, Hartford and New Haven. In 1875, Connecticut lawmakers got fed up and decided that the capital had to be located in one city. Hartford and New Haven vied for the honor, with Hartford winning due to its central location. Today's winner is Carol from Providence. She has won a Financial Exchange Show t-shirt and is also registered to win a $100 gift card to Applebee's. We'll be giving away the gift card on Friday's show. Trivia is brought to you by Applebee's. Enjoy half-price late-night appetizers after 9 p.m. and join Club Applebee's to enjoy exclusive deals and specials. You'll get a free appetizer just for signing up. Now that's eating good in the neighborhood. Void where prohibited. Dine in only.
I don't go into bank branches very frequently, and I don't know that either of you do. So, if you have no insight on this, then just let me know. But have you guys noticed that it does seem that bank branches are just looking more and more bougie?
Much sleeker. Yes. Yes.
I miss the days of just a grungy old bank branch with a stained, dropped ceiling and, everything's behind plexiglass and just an unhappy teller behind there that's ready to work with you. And that's not really what the experience is these days. I was at a Bank of America, probably like a year and a half ago. And yeah, same story. I walked in. They asked me if I had an appointment. I didn't really realize I needed an appointment for what I was doing. Sat on a couch until somebody came and sat with me, and they're like, "Here, I'm gonna, let's bring you back here where you can give me your account number, and we'll just get this taken care of for you." But very different experience compared to a few years ago. And I wonder in your mind what's driving it. I mean, certainly I can't be the only person that's going into bank branches less frequently. Nobody's using cash as much as they did a few decades ago. So it's a response to that. Is it just a response to, I mean, these days when I go into a bank, it's less because I need to make a transaction and more because I need something complicated. And for a lot of folks, they probably need advice on that complicated type of transaction.
Yeah, to me, our whole generation in general, it seems like would have absolutely no reason or inclination to go to a bank branch. I put myself in that camp. I don't know if you guys fall in there as well.
I think for a lot of people, though, like, you may be getting financial advice from your bank. You may be going in because you need advice on a maturing CD. Those are the only reasons you go into one.
Well, that's what it seems like this pivot point is, right? Is more of a focus on a meeting place, a sort of extension of the advisory sort of business, and less so focus on deposits and withdrawals with ATMs at drive-thrus or just outside of your physical branch location, and limited use of cash, Mike, to your point, with Venmo and just electronic payments in general, I would absolutely agree that if you look at the teller transaction cited in this report by Citigroup, the volume was down 40% in terms of what they've seen there. So that is the focus much more now. It's appointments for advisory consultation versus transactions.
And almost every bank branch that I've been into over the last few years has had a financial advisor located in them in some way, shape, or form, whether it's a broker or a financial advisor. Good question, and you should check. But if it's a Bank of America branch, then you've got a Merrill broker. If it's most of the big banks these days have their own advisory business. Like even Citizens, which is not a huge bank, but a pretty big regional one, has their own dedicated financial advisor.
It's a no-brainer cross-sell. If someone's sitting on hundreds of thousands of dollars in a checking account making low-bearing interest, it's so easy to just say, gee, we have an advisor right here. Why don't you go talk with them? And most people that you talk with that have a large balance in a bank, the bank teller is going to absolutely refer it that way. It just makes sense. But it is interesting. To me, I thought the branches would just die off. When I interned at Bank of America like 10 years ago, there was a conscious effort to lessen the amount of branches that they had throughout the country. And now it's going the other direction.
Yeah, Bank of America, both Bank of America and JP Morgan Chase, are expanding branch locations. And JP Morgan Chase just came to Boston for the first time ever. There's a branch in my town now.
The same thing in my town as well. They're making a real intended effort to be more of a presence here, which is dominated so much by Bank of America.
Revocable and irrevocable trusts are commonly used to protect your assets, but there are significant differences between the two. Don't take chances securing your future. Call Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699 and get their brand new guide called The Differences Between Revocable and Irrevocable Trusts. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder life planning, and they can answer critical questions that may have as you determine which trust may be best for you and your family. The guide contains crucial information about a variety of topics, including the income tax effects of both trusts, ways to leave assets to your children, as well as many other factors you should consider in the estate planning process, such as your net worth, your age, and your marital status. Call today, 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699, or request the guide online from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
I'm going to go a bit off script here and do something we don't usually do. Lois, can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up. Okay, Lois can hear me. Lois is our office manager here, and I have no experience working with the United States Postal Service, so I'm going to ask her instead, because she does have a lot of experience. Would you say experience has gotten better or worse over the last 12 months? That's a big thumb down in terms of service from the United States Postal Service.
It's 100% gotten worse. I deal with this in a part-time side business I have where I'm constantly going to the post office and getting packages in and shipping them out. It's gotten exponentially worse in the last 8, 9, 10 months.
Wow.
Unbelievably bad.
So the Postal Service is undergoing a fairly significant overhaul, and part of the reason is, according to the head of the postal agency, Louis DeJoy, the agency cannot afford to pause the overhaul, adding that if the Postal Service stays put and pays all its bills, it will run out of money in 3 to 4 years. So one more government agency that can't pay its bills, according to things. And, they're doing a number of different things to try and be more efficient here. They've also raised the price of a stamp. What's a stamp going for these days? It costs 73 cents for a first-class stamp these days. It's a 5-cent increase from the previous price of 68. I don't, again, know where they are competitive or not competitive on price, but the idea that I can ship a bunch of my Christmas cards anywhere across the country, including Hawaii, for 73 cents would probably seem like some low-hanging fruit to me. I know you don't have a lot of ability to, increase prices if you're sending an overnight package, right? Because if you just get too expensive, I'm going to go to FedEx, I'm going to go to UPS. But nobody in private business is willing to send a letter for me across the continental or non-continental U.S. for 73 cents. So I know that there's a number of people who are shaking their head and saying, no, that's why the Postal Service was set up, was so that we could communicate with more tougher to reach areas, and every town's got a post office, and that's the whole benefit to this. Well, That was really important in the 1800s. I'm going to say that that's not where I want my tax dollars going in 2024 because of this amazing new invention that you may have heard of called the internet, which allows me to pretty readily communicate with people. So, again, my only exposure
we still
to
have
the
to
Postal
do it
Service,
in our world, though. Mailing. Our business. It's still part of the game with
and it should not
stuff.
cost me 73 cents as a business owner to ship a letter from this place to a customer in, rural New Hampshire even.
You're right. It's an easy
No wonder you're losing money.
It's an easy punching bag to go after the post office in terms of its failure to adapt and make changes, but it's pretty unbelievable the prices that they charge for what you can get.
Yeah, of course it is. Again, like as a business, and maybe that's what I hate this idea because I don't think you should, penalize the businesses more heavily, but that is who's filling up your mailbox with a bunch of junk is, if you've got a corporate ID that you've got a post office relationship with, boost up the price on regular mail there. If you really want to subsidize me sending my Christmas cards to Hawaii every year, then you can still do that and just charge businesses more.
They are a great scapegoat, though. If you ever are late on sending something out, just say, hey, probably got lost in the mail.
If Grandma didn't get her birthday card, just...
It's the mail.
Darn to joy in the post office. I sent that thing
3
out
weeks
months
ago.
Yeah. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to have a little bit of stack roulette next on the Financial Exchange.
Business and financial news affecting the markets and your wallet. We've got it all straight from Wall Street right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Taxation is a critically important element to be aware of when you're building your estate plan, especially when it comes to understanding inherited IRAs. The tax treatment of these accounts depends on a variety of factors, including the specific type of IRA, the relationship between the deceased and the beneficiary, and the beneficiary's personal circumstances. In this month's new free guide from the Armstrong Advisory Group called The Complexities of Inherited IRAs, we'll help you understand the possible tax complications you could face when inheriting an IRA. Plus, we'll walk you through the recent changes to federal rules regarding these accounts. Get your free guide today by calling 800-393-4001. 800-393-4001, or you can also request the guide at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
For 40 years, Cancer Support Community has been a relentless ally for anyone impacted by cancer, with free services provided online and in person, with their newest location in Massachusetts. Connect with Cancer Support Community Massachusetts for free emotional support, educational resources, patient navigation, financial counseling, and more. 617-797-3391. CancerSupportMass.org. CancerSupportMass.org.
Inheriting an IRA was a straightforward process until the passage of the Secure Act in 2019 and the more recent changes that have made things a bit more complicated. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and it's really important that you develop a strategy to deal with these changes to the law, or you and your family could face significant tax consequences in the future. If you've inherited money from your spouse, the process remains relatively simple. But if you're inheriting an IRA from someone other than your spouse, there are numerous issues that you'll want to be aware of to protect those assets. Call us right now at 800-393-4001 and ask for your copy of our new guide called The Complexities of Inherited IRAs. That number again is 800-393-4001, or you can also request it online from our website, armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Creating a trust is oftentimes the first step in the estate planning process. It helps you prepare for the unknown as well as the inevitable. Revocable and irrevocable trusts are the most common types of trusts, but there are significant differences between the two. So before you make that crucial decision, call Cushing & Dolan at 866-848-5699. Ask for their new guide called The Difference Between Revocable and Irrevocable Trusts. Let them help you understand which may be right for you and your family and protect the wealth that you've achieved throughout your working years. Protecting your assets is paramount to being able to enjoy your retirement years. So call right now, 866-848-5699, and get your free guide today. Give yourself the peace of mind you need as you build your estate plan. Again, That number is 866-848-5699. Or request a guide online from their website, LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
Miss any of the show? Catch up at your convenience by visiting financialexchangeshow.com and clicking the on-demand icon where you'll find all of our interviews and full shows. This is your home for the latest business and financial news in New England and around the country. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
The Financial Exchange has built an incredible partnership with the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We can't wait to take part in this year's DAV 5K set for Saturday, November 9th at Fort Independence on Castle Island, and registration is now open. You can help our great American heroes by walking, running, or simply making a donation. Your gifts will support services such as the Veteran Advancement Program, which offers permanent and affordable housing opportunities for veterans and their dependents. Learn more at DAV5K.Boston. The DAV 5K Boston is presented by Veterans Development Corporation.
Time for a bit of stack roulette here. Paul, what do you have for us to kick things off?
Many of us are following the NBA Finals with the Boston Celtics up 2-0 against the Dallas Mavericks, but the WNBA is reporting record TV viewership for the 2024 season and its highest game attendance in 26 years. The WNBA is now averaging 1.3 million viewers per game, tripling their numbers from last year, and it all comes back to rookie sensation Caitlin Clark, who has come into the league from Iowa, and there has just been a firestorm of media coverage on the sports side of the WNBA, both in positive and negative regards, which is sports talk in general. Welcome to that world. But it just is incredible how one particular player can really raise the whole level of a league. And the controversy that started up recently in regards to Caitlin Clark is her omission from the U.S. Women's Olympics team for Paris in 2024. Many people pushing back, saying that she should absolutely be on the roster.
Even if she's not good enough, she should be on the roster.
That's the whole thing, is that ultimately these entities are businesses. When it comes down to it, they are entertainment businesses, but they are businesses, and you want as many eyeballs on your product as possible. And whether or not she was going to get minutes and play for the team, that was the argument that was made, is that she wouldn't really pay that much. But someone made a counterpoint that I saw the other day as well. Doesn't the U.S. blow all these teams out by 20 or 30 points anyway? Yes.
I don't think the U.S. women have ever lost.
So you're basically saying that
so why couldn't they find 10
Caitlin
minutes for
Clark
her?
is Rudy?
No.
I actually saw something on this, and far be it from me from being any sort of sports commentary, but there was a tweet from who was it? She plays for Chicago. Angel Reese. Was fighting back on the claim that the only reason for the growth in popularity was Caitlin Clark, and so somebody took a look at the attendance at non-Caitlin Clark WNBA games and Caitlin Clark ones, and so 7,500, 4,000, 10,000, 7,000, 3,000, 10,000, 7,000 were the attendance for the non-Caitlin Clark games over the past weekend, and in the Caitlin Clark games, 17,000 and 17,000. So
double or triple.
Yeah, statistics. Well, there's lies, damn lies, and statistics. So maybe it was something else, but it seems as though Caitlin Clark is doubling attendance at her games for Indiana. Is it?
Indiana.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anti-woke shareholders are going after corporate boards, and boards are reacting. Target has dramatically changed what they have in their stores. You've seen changes from Bud Light and other companies. The direction that they're going on all this, by the way, you may find interesting. I mean, the reason that all of the ads on the Super Bowl are incredibly boring is mainly because of stuff like this, is that you can't say anything as a corporation without pissing off half your customers. But with advertising being so nuanced today and being so customizable, they're basically doing the same type of advertising, and they're just directing who sees it, right? So if you want to do an advertisement that's really in favor of Pride Month for June, you just pick out customers that you know are not going to be offended by a Pride Month ad, and you deliver it to their cell phones, their Facebook feeds, and not people that follow conservative media, for example. So this stuff isn't going away. Trust me, companies still want to get down to your level and feed you topics that are interesting to you. They're just so easily able to customize it based on your browsing history that you aren't going to see the topic that offends you. So that's my main takeaway is, Bud Light will have a conservative targeted ad, a religious targeted ad, a non-religious, a trans, gay ad. Like, they will customize everything, and you will never see the ones that you're not supposed to see is how they're going to continue to advertise. This isn't new. They've been doing this for quite some time.
You think that Bud Light shouldn't have to tailor their ads too much because it fundamentally just comes back to drink our beer at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But I'm not disagreeing that there's a need for that in this climate, but it should be a little simpler, and maybe I am just nostalgic for the 2000s and 90s where you just had those Coors Light ads and those Bud Light ads that were very simple.
Just bring back the frogs. Just bring back
the polar bears for Coca-Cola. Like, it just seems like
I hated the Coca-Cola polar bears.
Hated them?
Yeah.
What's wrong with them?
It's just so boring. It's just a family of polar bears drinking Coca-Cola.
There's a whole lot worse of ads out there.
Yeah,
on the
there are,
insurance
but
front.
come on. Give me something
It's better than the
comedic.
Clydesdales. Clydesdales are worse.
The Clydesdales aren't that great.
I
They're
mean,
not that
I
exciting.
got nothing against polar bears, but you've told me nothing with this advertisement other than some nearly extinct bears like your product. What do you have? What else do you have for us, Paul? Anything else catch your eye in Stack Roulette, or you want me to go again?
Pat Sajak, the iconic Wheel of Fortune host, says farewell after more than 40 years. Wheel of Fortune, just two legendary hosts, Sajak and Bob Barker for Price is Right over the last 5-10 years, hanging it up after a phenomenal career. Sajak took over in 1981 and has been a mainstay for American TVs for millions of viewers for years and years. And I don't know if you'll have, I guess Jeopardy will continue to carry on the legacy, and Wheel of Fortune, these things are still on, but
yeah,
they're
Wheel of
just so
Fortune,
tethered to
Jeopardy,
their
they'll
horse.
still. I don't think
Yeah.
they're going anywhere. I'm sorry, I'm having a total brain fart. Who was the Jeopardy host who passed away?
Alex Trebek.
Trebek, right? Yeah. What do they have a host plan already set up for Wheel of Fortune? Who's going to
it's
take
Ryan
place?
Seacrest.
Ryan Seacrest is taking over. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Doesn't he have enough jobs already?
Apparently, well, no, he's only busy one day a year on New Year's Eve.
No, doesn't he host a radio show?
He has a radio show. He does.
He's involved with American Idol still. Is that
I
even
don't-
on anymore?
I have no idea. It's
Again-
still on. I don't know if he's on.
You're a live radio host, so okay, you've got like 3 hours max a
Mike,
day.
this is a lot
on
of
that.
work.
I don't disagree, but we all have day jobs too. It's kind of a part-time gig, Paul.
I'm gonna look up what else Ryan Seacrest does. I feel like he's got a lot on his plate. He does a lot of different hats.
Okay, Paul. Taking a look here at markets, the Dow Jones Industrial Average off 210 points, approximately 0.5%. S&P off about 15 points or 0.25%, and the Nasdaq basically flat for the day, 0.05% off its yesterday close. The Russell 2000 off a little bit less than 0.9% as we approach the noon hour here. Yield on the 10-year Treasury sitting at 4.451%. As a reminder, folks, 8:30 a.m. tomorrow, we'll have a CPI release. 2:30 p.m. tomorrow, Jerome Powell and the Federal Reserve will be addressing the nation with their press conference and their interest rate setting policy. We'll be back at it, covering all that and more. Have a great afternoon. Enjoy this wonderful 10-day forecast, and we will talk to you soon.